This is the 10-Minute Contrarian Podcast. This is VP. We are a solutions-based podcast, diving into the world of contrarian investing and alternative finance. You can find us hosted on the No Nonsense Forex YouTube channel, NoNonsenseForex.com, and podcast players everywhere. Episode 225 is brought to us by Bybit, and once again, I believe a congratulations in order for every single crypto trader out there who uses the system I teach and who trades on Bybit. There is no way you could not have made a boatload of money this week based on what just happened. As usual, you usually get a few days of lead time to where the market is already going the direction you want it to go, and then that massive day comes. What's even better is you can trade on a huge, safe platform and get rewarded for it a lot. You click my link for this. My link is in the Bybit blog, which you can find in the show notes. You scroll down to the bottom of that blog and click it. Get yourself signed up. Get trading. Because this crypto market for traders is the gift that keeps on giving. But what's even better is that with Bybit, membership has its rewards. It is the 10-Minute Contrarian Podcast, and you guys know how this goes by now. I will take this week to talk just a little bit about the episode coming up next week, and then I'll say, hey, this is what next week's episode will be, barring anything crazy. And so this week, if you didn't know, we had something crazy, a few things, actually, really. But I had to take all my nice, pretty notes that I had prepared in advance, ready for episode 225, and scratch out the 5 in 225 and change it to a 6, because this is hopefully still going to be next week's episode. I was really excited to bring it to you, but we need to talk. Now, actually, I don't think I need to talk to the majority of you, but it's great to use weeks like this to process it and remind everybody of our stance and the way we approach weeks like this and the way we take advantage of weeks like this. Because weeks like this used to never happen. But I told everybody the 2020s are going to be absolutely bananas in ways that you would have never been able to dream up. But what's good is you can still see a lot of these things coming ahead of time. And so when they happen, while the rest of the world is running around with their hair on fire, we know exactly what to do. And weeks which can be chaotic and devastating for markets can be godsends for people like us here in Contrarian Land. It's great. We literally do get the best of everything out here. So let's talk about it. In this episode, we're going to talk about metals and geopolitics and crypto, all of it. So there's a little something for everybody here. Now let's go ahead and start with gold. Gold is in price discovery stage, which it has been for a while. But anytime you have weeks like this where there is uncertainty and a certain level of chaos, you can expect sovereign nations to say to themselves, hey, we either need some gold or we need more gold. And I want you to remember, too, this is a very bold thing normally for nations to do, because not only are you abandoning your currency to buy gold, you're telling everybody in your country that maybe your currency is not the way to go moving forward. You're creating a lot of distrust there, but you just don't have a choice. It's that important. It's that necessary to up your gold stores as a country for your own survival. So what does that say for people like us? Exact same fucking thing. For your own survival, unless you want to be like everybody else and complain that prices are just going up everywhere and there's nothing you can do about it. You can protect your money. You can also profit off of it by the way of mining stocks. Like, if you know where the puck is going, and we all know, you can skate towards it as opposed to just sitting there and hoping things will get better, because they won't. We are in a very transitional period in our history, and transitions are painful, and transitions are chaotic. Do you think the amount of gold being bought by sovereign nations is, the chart is not even going up and to the right, it's going straight up? Do you think this is happening because the world expects things to be calm going forward? Again, if there was even a small chance of that happening, you would not risk national distrust of your own currency by doing something like this. But this is exactly what every nation who can buy gold is doing. It's very telling. I mean it, contrarians, you need to take every step you can possibly take, including ones which aren't that comfortable, to give yourself every advantage you can and protect yourself every way you possibly can moving forward, because we have already entered a brand new world. But let's move off of that for now and move into silver. Silver this week tested new highs and then got absolutely Matumbo-like rejected, which I completely expected, and I'm going to tell you why. I actually put a poll out on X to ask you whether you thought it was going to be, as soon as silver broke that new high, if it's going to go to the moon, if it's going to get rejected, or if it's just going to kind of sit there and stagnate. And the answers were pretty even across the board. But I was pretty sure we were going to see this rejection. And the reason why is the same reason it always happens. And this is going to be a big theme going forward in this episode too. Just remember, I've said this before, but short-term traders prosper. Long-term investors absolutely prosper. The people in the mushy middle get absolutely destroyed all the time, over and over. To where I can't even believe there's people in the mushy middle anymore, but that's still the vast majority. And that's why weeks like this week are so crazy, because it affects so many people, usually in a very negative way. And believe me, the powers that be are not going to let these people get rich with them. It's fine if we do, because there's not a lot of us. But they want the least amount of people on board before this train leaves the station. And doing things like having big rejections at highs or near highs more than once. I would not be surprised if this happened again. Just to let everybody know, or to trick some of these mushy middle people into thinking, okay, this is going to be the midterm high. It's probably in my best interest to sell at this point. As soon as you get enough people to do that, as soon as you flush those people out, that's exactly when it's going to be rocket time. And it should be rocket time, because I don't know if you've been paying attention to what's going on in the LBMA. If you're a short squeeze nerd like I am, and you really pay attention to the lack of silver in the COMEX and the LBMA, and the dwindling supplies, I should say. What's been happening recently is, I'll take what used to happen in the past. Let's talk about that. You would get this big short squeeze narrative, then all of a sudden you wouldn't hear anything for like a month or maybe two. And then you would forget about it, which is what they want you to do. But if you didn't forget about it, and you're like, well, why is this happening? Why is it completely out of the overall narrative? Well, it's because a bunch of silver just came into the COMEX and the LBMA. They do refill their stores when they get the chance to. And so instead of that number going down, it actually goes up. And then slowly deteriorates over time. Well, what's happening this year is there are periods of time where they're supposed to get new silver in, but they just don't, which is a real problem for them. Because we have finally hit that period of time to where silver has become so valuable that they just can't keep it in store. They're still going to get some silver in, but it's not going to be anywhere near what they need. And this is what's going on right now. Now, if you look at some of the charts that show stores of the LBMA, you might actually see those supplies go up, but just know that all of that supply, or almost all of that supply, is 100% spoken for by institutions, which means you can't have it. And the institutions are not selling it, or it's going into big ETFs. And a lot of those people aren't selling either. So whether it's there or not, it's irrelevant. We're really looking at the amount of available silver, and that number is going down, 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 down. And when that number goes down, 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 that is supply going down, 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 which makes the price go up, up, up. And I've said it before, I've always believed the cheapest silver is in the ground. It still absolutely is. And we have seen leveraged gains from those positions. And is there still time? Not financial advice. I absolutely still think there is time. I still think there's lots of time. But in all the chaos of this week, you have predictably seen the overall price of gold and silver still do very well. And that should not have been a surprise to you at all. What also should not have been a surprise is the Trump tweet bombshell we saw on Friday. I'm really surprised people reacted to this as much as they did. People are really, really stupid, and they just continue to not learn anything. So Trump comes out on Friday with a pissy little tweet saying how he's mad that China has declared that they are hoarding all of these metals and not going to sell them to the United States anymore, or something like that. Whatever it was, I was sitting there like, yeah, duh. Like, contrarians, we have known this the whole time. We have known that there is going to be a cold war for critical minerals going forward, and because of this, you need to be positioned accordingly, because we knew a moment like this was going to happen. Duh. But the market freaks out. And they're like, what? Like this wasn't so fucking obvious. First of all, what's also obvious is we learned this ever since the tariff tantrum. Like, have we not seen a pattern by now? I mean, step one, Trump puts a ridiculously high tariff on a country. Step two, the same fucking idiots flip out about it and start involuntarily pissing and shitting themselves in public. And then step three, normally Trump lowers the tariff or gets rid of it altogether after he gets what he wants. I swear to God, has nobody read an elementary level business book or an elementary book on negotiation? I believe everybody should be allowed to have an opinion. I just don't believe everybody should be allowed to state it publicly. And I am very anti-censorship, but I swear, when panicking seems to be your number one go-to all the time, you're either doing it on purpose because you're shitty and manipulative and you don't care how people interpret it, or you're just that dumb and you panic over everything. But panic they do, and panic certain markets did throughout the entire day. We'll get to that in just a moment. Right now, I want to also, I guess while the iron's hot here, I kind of want to talk about what I think is going on across the globe. And I've mentioned this before, but I really want to stress it now. I think you're really having a fracturing going on in terms of what the United States is trying to do. The United States really wants to lock down the entire Western Hemisphere if they can. And they'll do this while still having nodes in the Eastern Hemisphere, places like Australia and certain places in Europe, Middle East, but definitely lock down the Western Hemisphere and kick China out of it. And the main reason why? Again, it all goes back to minerals. Just like back in the day, it would all root back to oil. It's like, why are these terrible wars breaking out over oil? Oil is life. Oil is energy. Oil is power. If you don't have it, the quality of life for your citizens drops, and then the clock instantly starts ticking in terms of your ability to keep leading it. And the same is going to happen going forward when it comes to critical minerals. Why? Because of the electrification of everything going forward and the amount of minerals and energy it's going to take to achieve what we are trying to achieve. Now, I even said, as far as AI goes, we don't have the minerals to do what we want to do there. But damn it, we're going to try. We're going to get as close as we can. And powerful nations know that the balance of power is going to shift over time depending on who wins this particular race. So the powerful nations want to lock down less powerful nations for their minerals, and the less powerful nations are fine giving up their minerals if that means they're going to be safe and prosperous within this particular sphere of influence. So what you also saw happen this week was the Trump administration trying to lock down Argentina. Why Argentina? Argentina's got minerals. Argentina's got a lot of things. And for the time being, at least, Argentina has a non-socialist leader, so you need to kind of strike while the iron's hot here. So the U.S. is saying, all right, stop taking loans from the predatory IMF and instead relinquish that power and sovereignty over to us. We will at least be kinder and gentler than the IMF will be. And so we will open up swap lines to you, which if you don't know about swap lines, they are when the United States allows other countries open access to United States dollars, which is what Argentina has wanted for a very, very long time because a lot of their inflation has to do with the lack of United States dollars in their system. This has been the case for several South American countries. Bolivia comes to mind as well here. Even with Bolivia, if you look at the exchange rate, it doesn't look like it's gotten out of control, but when they have lack of dollars, they suffer crazy inflation from all other ends. And believe you me, this will be an opportunity for the United States to step in. Now, they've already pretty much locked down most of North America, Central America, and the Caribbean. There's still a bit of work to be done there, but South America is going to be a much tougher task. Because at least as far as the Chinese go, they are very entrenched in certain countries already, namely Brazil. That's going to be kind of the Donnybrook when it's all said and done. But they're also I was just in Peru, lovely country, by the way, but the Chinese have a gigantic presence there. They have one of the largest ports in the world in Lima. They're even ingrained in the culture to a degree. And so that's going to be a really tough nut to crack. But again, like we said before, their leadership in South America is very, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like on a razor's edge at all times. With the exception of my beloved Paraguay, and you could maybe argue Uruguay to an extent, it's a mess out there. And especially in Peru this week, Peru just impeached their president by a vote of 122-0. This was after, you might remember me making fun of the previous president, Castillo, for looking like a 14-year-old and also being a socialist. And I'm like, well, this isn't going to end well. And Peruvians got mad, and I was exactly right, because it never ends well when you elect a socialist. But I don't think this lady was much better. And what's even worse is the guy who's taking her place, at least up until the 2026 elections, already has a 95% disapproval rating and a history of sexual violence. So it just is what it is, man. If you can't get your government right, you really open yourself up to foreign influence. And this could be the opening a country like the United States would want and need. I already think they're going to move in on Venezuela at some point. I would not be surprised at all if you saw that. As much as Trump likes peace, he also understands there is an ends to a means, which is what we saw in Iran. And I think they're going to at least attempt to try and get all of South America into their sphere of influence and just lock down the entire Western Hemisphere. So how you feel about this, like I said, does not matter. See the writing on the wall, adjust accordingly, protect your money, and profit off of it. Unless it's something that you're absolutely morally opposed to, which I get, this transition could be great for these countries or it could be terrible. Who knows? I mean, in my opinion, anything's better than socialism. At least when you move away from socialism, you have the chance to prosper. But we'll see. But just know that it all roots down to critical minerals at the end of the day and energy, but to a slightly lesser degree. Because I suppose it is all energy, but more in the electrification sense than the burning fossil fuel sense. One little tidbit to add in there before we move on to crypto. Keep your eyes open for what happens this Monday. We might see a bit of an Asian panic as far as precious metals go due to what's going on with all of this. Now, if you believe this might happen, but you're like, well, the markets aren't going to be open until Monday. What do I do? Well, you can always move to gold through the blockchain if you choose. Again, not financial advice. I could be completely wrong about this. But if you also see the possibility of this coming, that's kind of what's great about the blockchain, is you can move into PaxG right now. Now, there is also XAUT from Tether, but I did a blog on this years ago, and I'm pretty sure this is still the case. XAUT is mostly for institutions, and PaxG is mostly for us. I hold PaxG. I like it. I like Paxos as a company. I'm in favor of what they do. They have monthly attestations, and I feel pretty good with my gold being there as well. But speaking of crypto, we apparently on Friday had the biggest washout day in crypto's history. Out of all the ones we've seen, yesterday was it. Over a Trump tweet about a tariff. These fucking monkeys, I swear. Like this still happens, and it's good because we need to be reminded that things like this still happen. I mean, some prices dropped 70, 80% in a day for a very short amount of time. Now, unfortunately, I didn't catch it, or else I would have been buy. I would have told everybody buy, because this is stupid. But I was on a flight yesterday, and I didn't get wind of any of this until I was on the taxi ride on the way back home. And I take a look in my Discord forum, and one of our guys is showing these prices. I'm like, that can't be real. And so I look them up, and I'm like, well, they're not real. Where are you getting this from? And then I click on the one-day chart, and I'm like, oh, shit. Would you look at that? They did drop, and then they all popped right back up. So one of the questions I always used to ask myself in the past was, with all the tokens out there, how do they all behave the same way for the most part? Now, barring stable coins, barring things like Bitcoin, why do they all go down and then all go back up? Like, does somebody just have their switch on, like a master switch that makes all these things go up and down? Well, it turns out that it's mostly trading algorithms that all behave very similarly. So if you're wondering why Goatcoin had the same price action as Ethereum, it's not because these individuals talk to each other. It's because they're all pretty much run by the same ethos due to these trading algorithms and investing algorithms, to where a lot of investors even say, okay, this is my absolute stop loss, and if it hits this, I'm getting out. Now I've said before here, unless I've already taken profit, when it comes to crypto, I don't have a stop loss. I have enough positions to where I can be like, all right, let's let this thing run or die. But due to the fact that we keep it large cap and we do our research here, the chances of it dying are extremely small. And I have an abundance mindset, so if it does die, so what? I have a bunch of other positions that are already doing well, so what do I care? But this is not the ethos of most people. Most people are in the mushy middle. So a lot of people got absolutely wrecked when these orders triggered, and they ended up with no money at the end of the day. Now you're like, well, how could this happen? We saw a bounce back up. It's not like these things went to zero. What happened? Leverage happened. Entire crypto firms, let me say that again, crypto firms, which you may have heard of, got completely wiped out due to leverage, which is why you should never, ever take these crypto firms seriously unless they're the type of firms who are already on the NASDAQ. Because even they might fall into this trap of leveraging, stupidly so, but the chances of them doing it are a lot lower. I've said it before, unless you are trading, in which there is a time and a place for leverage, crypto is so volatile already, and the upside that is there to be had is already so tremendous that you do not need any leverage at all, and you should not be using any leverage at all. Now, people might say, well, I'm broke and I want money and I want to escape this life. Well, you can still do that by doing things the right way and going a bit slower. And the difference is the chances of you getting out of that situation this way is way higher than it would be if you're constantly playing lottery tickets, or you're getting too excited in a large move upward and you think it's just going to be this way for the rest of eternity. It's not, ever. We've seen how this market operates. There's always going to be a lot of volatility attached to it. And if you know what you're doing, you can really, really take advantage of it. The Bitcoin maxis, as they always do, take whatever win they can. They're very quiet when they're not taking W's. But when they do, when Bitcoin moved down a lot less than most altcoins did, they're all like, see, you should just invest in Bitcoin and all altcoins are going to zero because I'm in a cult. No, investing in the future of technology is a good idea. You just have to be halfway intelligent about it. Now, how do we be halfway intelligent about these things? Well, we take events like this that we've seen before, where something happens in the world and all of these companies who had nothing to do with that thing that just happened end up losing a ton of value for no reason, which we even have a word for here on the podcast. I'll give you a hint It's the title of this episode, and we don't waste time. We take advantage of it. I mean, you guys know from last episode, I just bought a bunch of things, and so I was a bit low on cash. Well, I just became lower on cash, and that's just going to have to be how it is for a while. I'm going to have to wait and build up those cash stores once again, because you bet I took advantage of this and bought more altcoins. Now, which altcoins did I buy? Well, you can probably figure it out. I didn't buy anything new. You guys know the ones I like to add on to the most, but there are additional reasons for me doing that, and that was going to be the theme of this week's episode, which will now be the theme of next week's episode. So I don't want to get too into it now. But the people who are on top of this gigantic move down before it bounced back up and said, damn the torpedoes, damn the high fees, I know a deal when I see it. They really had like an instant come up in as little as 10 minutes because they understand this. And they understand there is no real relation between these companies and what Trump decides to tweet on a Friday. It's nothing but people de-risking, and that de-risking causes this cascading waterfall effect by tripping all of these sell signals and all of these algorithms to where right when we think this market has gotten big enough to where we don't see 70% drops, it still happens. And we've seen enough of these to know that there's no logical reason for price to go that low. And so we have trained ourselves to take advantage of it, which I hope you did. And judging by the looks of things this morning, there is still time. And judging by what's going on this planet, there will no doubt be even more opportunities to stack things which will play a large part in our future. Now, will all this chaos cause a recession at some point? Probably. I think it will. But that will be an episode in itself. But you shouldn't be confused as to what to do at this point. But if you still are at times, keep it locked in right here at the 10 Contrarian Podcast. We'll go over it. We will remind you what to do. Because what many people interpret as chaos and uncertainty, we here see it as pretty obvious and inevitable. And when you see it that way, knowing what to do is pretty easy. At that point, it's just a matter of executing. At that point, it's just a matter of taking advantage of the crazy and making sure you're early.